And as I see that there's a camera at the back of the room, we will not be proceeding until it is set aside. Section 30 of our procedural bylaw, 30.1. At meetings of council or a committee, the use of cameras, electronic or electric lighting equipment, flash bulbs, recording equipment, television cameras, and other device of a mechanical, electronic, or similar nature used for transcribing or recording proceedings by auditory or visual means by members of the public, included accredited and other representatives of any news media whatsoever, will not be permitted. Only audio and or video recording devices operated by the township staff shall be allowed during the meetings of committee or council. So that Mr. Hill, would you please set that to the side? Would you please leave then?
Or you ordered me to leave?
I don't want to. I would rather you just set the camera aside. But under the procedural bylaw, if you don't, I'm obligated to ask you to leave. Okay? Will you please leave?
And if I don't?
Well, Kathy?
We'll have to have you escorted out, Steve, so.
Escorted out by whom?
The
Pardon?
Police.
It's off. So that's sufficient?
I would rather you put the lens cap back on it, but, or whatever.
I'd rather not. Pardon?
Make a call.
Kathy?
It's not on.
It's not even on. Don't. I call the police.
Then you gotta do that. That's your constitutional right.
Brad? Or Mr. Carruthers? Do you want to leave too? There will be a time for the press to interview in the recess before we have the in-camera session.
Will that be on record? Will the cameras be on?
They're permitted, anyone is permitted to use their cameras for the purpose of interviewing during the recess.
The town's camera will be shut off though?
Yes.
Camera's off, don't let me stop it.
I speak to you guys.
Okay. Are they,
The camera's wrong, just so you know.
It is running.
The screen's up at least.
Looking to see if he's done speaking to us. We will have to remove it.
I don't want to touch it.
Did you want to briefly adjourn until you
Okay, briefly adjourn until said camera at the back of the room disappears. We'll reconvene the meeting now. Mr. Hill, are you willing to shut the camera off and
I
remove
shut
it?
it off before, that didn't seem to make a difference. Will it now?
If I can intervene, Steve, basically, he's giving you one more chance to, if you want to remain here, turn the camera off, put the cap on. Don't record the videos per the bylaw, okay? And if you refuse to do that, you will have to. So he's giving you an option to stay or to leave. That's your option.
And I have to turn the camera off.
Yes.
I was saying.
In
Yes.
accordance to the bylaw, if that's what your wishes are.
Is that a bylaw?
Yes,
Oh, guess I'm. What's your name, sir?
Council, sir. Would you just say that?
Oh, no.
thank you. Okay, proceeding to accepting the agenda for July 18th, 2016 council meeting as amended. Items 7.2 and 7.3 under correspondence moved under the into the consent agenda because of time matters, have them passed. Councillor Knott, Councillor Ritzma-Tenenga, all in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, if any? None noted. The consent agenda, is there anybody wants anything discussed in it? Do I have a mover?
Sorry, I would like, I would actually like to pull out the Director of Emergency Services reports. I'd like to just ask some questions about those, if I could please.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
So, just want some points of clarification.
Just points of clarification, that's all it is, yeah.
I'll go to that right now.
Yes.
We will go to that right now then, please.
So from this, more of this is from through you, Reeve, to David, is the Quantum Murray discussion. So is there more consensus from other municipalities that they're still looking at it, or at this point are they just, have they kind of wiped their hands with it and now we're left kind of trying to figure out how this is going to impact us?
What I think the first part of the discussion is that no matter what, this is good for us. One of the things we learned at an incident a year ago is that having somebody that you can call and is available with resources beyond what we would normally need is a win, and it costs us nothing. So that's the first part of it. So no one else ever joins the party. It's better than we were a year ago. I can't tell you, the next chief's meeting is in September. I can't tell you right now whether there's going to be support, because just like if I didn't bring this to council, council's not going to consider it or review it. If my colleagues elsewhere opt not to endorse this and bring it to their councils, of course their councils aren't going to do anything with it either. My hope is that by virtue, unfortunately, of another municipality having an issue where they didn't have the resources to manage it, my hope is that catches enough people's attention that there will be interest on behalf of other municipalities in joining this program. If they don't, I can't force them to, and I can't do much more than Quantum Murray's offer is quite generous. But at the end of the day, my job is to look after our ratepayers as best I can. And in this case, collaboration increases what I can offer our ratepayers. But if there's no collaboration, our ratepayers are better off than some of our neighbors would be. And quite frankly, we're better off than we were a year ago.
Councillor Vaughn?
It's my impression that if more groups are participating, we would have access to more equipment on site. Is that
Yeah, the idea of this is that two parts to it. Firstly, they provide you with the cache of equipment, and obviously the bigger population base you're serving, the more stuff it would provide. But the second part that goes hand in hand with that is with the training that they were offering, they'd actually show you what to do with this stuff, right? So we've got some elementary skills, but if they increase what they're providing us, the training that would be provided would go hand in hand with that. They have provided us some equipment, so to say they provided none would be incorrect, but it's just the scope and the quantity reflect the fact we're a fairly small entity relative to if we got the whole county on board, or even if we got Morris, Trimbury, and Howick on board.
Trevor?
My next question is more of a comment, but maybe a question to David through you, Reeve, is with regards to countywide fire dispatch. I have a hard time with the fact that you have one meeting and the chiefs decide that it's not in the best interest, or for whatever reason after one meeting. I don't know how long your meetings are, if they're an hour or 8, I don't know. I guess the conversation is what shared services is the key word of the day in most municipalities, and sharing some costs. And how do you determine after one meeting that is not in the best interest of everybody? And so I'm not sure that's a question that you can answer as that, but for me, it's disheartening to hear a fact that you put it on the table and it doesn't sound like a lot of discussion. It was kind of just, we've talked about it, let's make a note of it and move on. Status quo remains. And I'm not sure the ratepayers of North Huron or the county, but that mind you, would be happy with always just having status quo either. So, I guess that's more of a comment. I'm not suggesting you need to respond. That's a comment from my perspective, just of what I'm reading, and not necessarily being involved in the actual meeting or what the discussion was. I do understand some of their points, and I understand those, but to have one meeting and then not talk about it again or disband because of something else, I think that's not very prudent and responsible, and in a sense of where those things could go. And maybe the end of the day, it wouldn't have went anywhere, but one meeting is a little light in my eye.
The only comment I would make is I think you probably gathered from my 3 reports that I'm waving the collaboration flag as much as I can. I firmly believe that if we buy together, we work together, we sign agreements for service provision together, that my job, and understand my job only is for the people that I'm contracted to protect, be it in North Huron or be it in our contract partners, municipalities. But if we work together, the people I'm contracted to protect win. They win financially, they win by the level of service can be provided. So I'm waving that flag as much as I can. All the fire chiefs in all municipalities face various dynamics and various decision-making things go into their decisions. But at the end of the day, I do understand that I'm a believer in a shared services model, because I think it's the best for our ratepayers and those we're asked to protect. And I'll keep waving that flag as best I can, but if, ultimately, I'm one fire chief, one fire department in the mix. And for whatever various assorted reasons that are out there, others may or may not join in and waving the flag with me. But I'll continue to wave it as best I can. Anecdotally, Perth County in June had a request for proposal or request for pricing on a countywide dispatch. Exclusive of Stratford, so St. Mary's and West Perth and North Perth and Perth East, I believe, all went together in a countywide dispatch request. And I think we've acted this sometime again. I don't think any of these are done, but short term it appears as though they may be.
Thank you, David.
Okay, do we have a mover? Deputy Reeve Campbell and Councillor Gladden. All in favor? Okay. Go to 4.2.41. Or no, 4.2.12.
Things under consent, we don't
We're ready to move
to the delegations,
delegation.
6.0.
Yeah, okay. Moving to the reports, 6.3.1.
Correct.
Moving to 6.3.1, Memorial Hall renovations. You want me to read all that, or everybody, all the council has read it? Councillor Sake,
I'll move for discussion purposes.
okay. And Councillor Gladden seconds. Discussion, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I'm not struggling with the fact that of what the budget is. I'm understanding of why the reduction in the contingency? Why is that driving a major concern or question about from the construction process? I don't understand. It's a contingency. So whether it's 299,000 or 150,000, what's that addendum? I'm not sure why they're wanting that.
So I think you understand why we're changing it from 299 to 150. We originally had 150. We upped it to 299 at time of tender. We brought that to council to explain that was our plan because we were uncertain of the exchange rate, how that would impact the bids. So back when we originally did our budget, back in 2015, until now when we were tendering, the exchange rates in the US had grown. And so in order for us to, we went back to 1419 and they agreed to increase the entire budget to add another $149,000 onto the contingency. So the goal was to allow for higher bids based on that US rate. So that's why we changed it from the 150 to the 299 prior to bid. So the contractor then carries their entire project and then adds in their bid another $299,000 for contingencies. In order for us to now award the contract, we want to remove $149,000 off that contingency, go back to $150,000, and then that's inside the entire scope of the project for unknowns and uncertainties as they unveil themselves through the project, the $150,000. The contractor is not permitted to spend the $150,000 without a change order, but he's aware, we're all aware that there's $150,000 there for that purpose. He's also carrying, in fact, the project permits about $750,000 in contingencies because there are certain pieces of the project that we've identified. For example, Irwin Seating is who we're ordering the seats from. So put in $90,000 into your budget for the seats. We're telling them how much they are, we're telling them where they're ordering them from, but it's in the $3,236,000, that piece. I don't know if I answered that very well, but if I answered your question.
The question for me is, we did it from 150 to 299 because of exchange.
Yes.
That's what we said.
Right.
The exchange rate hasn't changed a whole lot.
Since April 2015?
Not a lot. It's went maybe 4% at the most. Like it's 133 now. It's 133 today. So the conversation is that reduction because of, like, it wasn't 145. Like, I don't know what, I can't remember the conversation of what the exchange rate was at the time, but I, in my mind, don't think that has changed significantly from the fact that we have US vendors. Like, I don't know all the US vendors either, so that's the question I have.
Okay, so if I remember correctly, and I can look this up when we're if you want, but I believe the exchange rate the budget was set on was on 117. Was on 17% at the time the budget was created. Then we had a real big change in the US exchange rate. But because nobody knows when the groups are bidding, how many of their vendors are going to be from the States versus Canada, how much of the budget would be impacted. Our choices were to go back to our cost consultant and have them really hash that all out, which was going to cost us quite a bit of money, or throw some extra dollars in the contingency so that when the bids came in, we were inside our project budget. And so we went back to 1419 and they agreed to up the budget in order to accommodate the exchange rate. And that's why it's set at that time at 299. That was the amount that the architect, that 1419 agreed, and we all felt was a good number to add to the project for that potential of a greater bid than we had anticipated based on our cost consulting back in April 2015 when we finalized the project scope and drawings. It's a matter of taking the 299 down to 150 in a post-tender addendum is common practice, and this was what we had discussed with our architect. How do we accommodate for the US rate? We could have put the 150 up on the side and not put it inside the contingency and had it in the total project budget. Their recommendation was to put it in the entire scope of budget, have a 299 contingency, and after the bids come in, adjust the contingency to reflect what was actually needed for the project and reduce that contingency. So it has been spent, basically. It is no longer money that can be tapped into inside the contract for change orders. Is that okay? So that's how we're doing it this time. We could have done it the other way, which was just leave it on the table in a side budget and left it outside of the bid.
No, I'm okay. It's all about understanding and justification. That's all. I'm okay with it. It's not that I'm not. I just want to make sure that we're not going to have an issue after this all gets dealt with, and then come at the end of the day, we talk about an exchange rate again, and then why are we going back to 290? It's just a conversation of understanding the process from part A to part Z. That's all I need to understand. Thank you.
Deputy.
Is there a deadline when they have to be done?
Yes, there's a very tough deadline that they have to be done. So in the tender project, they must complete substantial completion by March 31st, 2017, because most of our funding from the Government of Ontario must be spent. In fact, all of their money must be spent by that date. And so we set that hard deadline, and by substantial completion being completed, it still allows for the outdoor plantings and a few other things to be done before the May date, which is our completion date, May 20th. But that's a very small piece of the entire project. In fact, each vendor was required to sign an affidavit or an addendum or something, I forget, they called it in the tender document that basically said, we know this is a deadline, we know that funding is attached to this, and we are submitting a bid that will accommodate overtime, weekend work, evening, whatever it's going to take to meet that deadline. So they were required to sign that inside their bid. And now what will happen is that once we award the contract, they must supply us a detailed project schedule, of which we will be having checkpoints to make sure they're on schedule, and then we have a large performance bond. If they are not meeting those project schedule deadlines, then we can start to draw on that performance bond. So we of course can't, as we said, we cannot have all control, but we have certainly put as many checkpoints as we can inside this contract.
Okay.
I just have one other thing to share, and that is that, sorry, in my report, I mentioned under the funding agreement that we would be receiving the signatures any day, and in fact, on Friday, we received an electronic copy of the agreement between 1419 Inc. and the Government of Ontario for the transfer funding agreement. So we don't have the hard copies yet, and they're not, I don't think, public to share yet, but it has been signed, and those details have all been worked out, so I can share that that is in place.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, 6.3.2. Do I have a mover?
Move it.
Councillor Vodden,
Again.
Councillor Ritzman-Dominga, Councillor Syke.
Question. So of the scope, Pat, that was put in the budget of 82,000, what percentage of that scope is this 11,000? Meaning, we put in 82, was our estimate way wrong, or is this scope a much more smaller size scope than what we budgeted?
I'm just looking up a number for you.
Okay.
Okay. So when we budgeted the $82,000, our breakdown for that was an inspection of $5,000, architect and project fees of $17,000, and $60,000 for repairs. To date, the project report we received was actually in 2015. So we spent some of our money that we had set aside. We actually set aside $33,000 in 2015. And then we moved more out of reserves to make the 82,000. Out of the 33,000, we spent 12 last year to produce the report that is attached here. This 11,000 is some of the roof repairs that need to be done. I do not have the information on the other steps. It's going to be a process of doing these repairs and seeing if that has completed the leaks that we have in the north corridor. And if that has solved those, then that's good news. We continue to have leaks in the fitness center between the pool, just outside the pool wall in the fitness center. And these repairs may be part of that leak. We also believe that there is a problem. We actually had an engineer in, and there's a problem with the negative pressure in the arena. So the Dectron unit has a pump to move air, and that needs to be repaired. And we're hoping that if we can get that negative pressure inside the inside the aquatic center repaired, then that may solve the leaks that are happening in the fitness center, because what's happening is the humidity is escaping that area. And so if those two things work, we're all gonna have a big happy dance, and I will be pretty much done. If they don't, we will be continuing down this road of inspecting and trying to figure out where the leaks are coming from. So this is 11,000 of $60,000 for repairs. So you can probably do that math better than me. It's about 20, no, it's not even 20%, it's about 15% of our repairs budget. And my hope is that I'm close to finding and solving all the solutions, but I will be coming back each time to council as we walk through this process. But we kind of want to do them one at a time, so we see as each repair is taking place, which one did we solve, and then move on.
Thank you.
I hope you're right, Pat.
Me too.
Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. Moving to
6.6.1.
6.6.1, OPP, municipal policing. Do we have a mover for this motion? Councillor Knott, Councillor Hallahan. Is there any discussion on it? All in favor? Carried. Moving to 7.1. Do we have a mover for this? Councillor Ritzman Tenenga, seconder. Councillor Knott. Discussion? Councillor Syke?
How is enforcement going to occur?
I think that would have to be a consideration in the report coming forward from the director and speaking with bylaw enforcement as well.
So that's my concern. I don't necessarily have a concern with the request from the BIA. I'm a little bit concerned on how this affects the BIA. Like what impact does the BIA have on this? This is it's at the post office. It's not impacting a business per se, other than the post office. I understand the elderly function on here, so that's not I'm suspecting that they're anticipating for the better of the community, and I respect that. But sometimes in these things that we look at, you know, I would prefer them asking a request, but provide a viable solution with some background or some discussion or something in a community, as opposed to this 4-paragraph discussion about why they want it. I understand why you want it, but there's other options, there's other issues that we have as a municipality that we don't know, that we're gonna get in a report now, and maybe they need to do some background to see what that before it came here. That's the part I struggle with, is that we get these requests a lot as a counselor on the street, and you know what? I take them as hearsay or rhetoric, unless they want to provide some solution, that they've done some homework, talked to people, made it an understanding. If they're just coming with a request, and I understand why, I struggle with sometimes that we're doing all the legwork for something that may be very simple from their perspective. And right now it's at 2 hours. That's the concern. Right now it says 2 hours. I'm not sure it's being enforced now. So that's my kind of point in my conversation about these kind of solutions. I'm not sure it's going to be a solution that's going to be of any difference to them if we were to inflect to this. So those are my comments about this. We can have the request. I'm probably not going to support it, just for the fact is, but these are kind of the things that I'm struggling with on a day-to-day when we get requests by individuals, groups, committees. Provided some solutions that make sense and not just changing something to suit some different people.
Councillor Vaughan?
Could I ask Councillor Seat if he's encountered any objections to this from the public?
I'm not sure there's been public consultation to know whether I have seen. I got this Friday. I've read it over the weekend. I know Councillor Ritzman Tenenga has brought this up at another council meeting. It was not forwarded on after that. And I haven't heard whatsoever from any, whether it be support or refusal for this particular motion. So the concern is it of the best interest of the public? I don't know. That's the concern. I don't know that.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, does council feel this request has merit? And do you wish to direct staff to prepare the report or not? That is the question before you. So I hear your concern that if the report is directed to proceed, that it should include some discussion about how enforcement would take place.
Okay, I have had 4 people talk to me directly about it. And yes, enforcement is one thing, but if the sign said 15 minutes, you would hope many of the residents would try and follow that directive. And that is the impetus that the 4 people that talked to me, that they said that, yeah, you won't stop all longer than 15-minute parking, but by and large, they figured most people would try and follow the rules if it was taken back to 15 minutes. Go ahead.
In response to Councillor Slight, this first was brought to me by a ratepayer, and then in discussions with the VIA, there have been other issues in regards to parking along Main Street and with business owners who are parking in front of their businesses as opposed to designated areas. And so I think that they just really want to get the ball rolling. And this is one area when they heard that there was a ratepayer who was interested in having 15-minute parking, and they had talked with others, and they thought that this would be a good way to get that started. That really downtown parking is for our ratepayers who are coming to use the shops and not for businesses. And at the post office, 15 minutes to run in and out, for sure, for, you know, definitely for seniors who don't want to have to walk too far to get there if they have some mobility issues or things like that. And I don't think it's a huge issue to make a minor change, and I think that most people, when they would see the sign, would respect that, regardless of whether or not it's always going to be enforced. I think that it would just naturally happen. People would be more respectful. Because it is supposed to be just stop in, grab your mail, and keep going.
Okay. Anybody else have comments or?
I think it's only a matter of respect, the whole thing, whether it be in front of the post office or in front of a business. Is this person's going to park in front of his and take a parking spot? Well, I think it's just respect at the post office. Get your mail and go, and somebody else in.
Okay. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, moving to 8.1.
Tim.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we do have to do it. I was gonna skip over.
Well, we are in a hurry, but.
No, we're not. I just read it.
Okay, that Saturday seems to be a very busy day with Legion celebrations on their completion of the addition and Blythe, 50th anniversary of Wingham Horticultural Society, and celebrations 2 to 4 at Crookshank Park. Street Fest in Blythe. Video controlled jets at the airport. So that there's something for everybody. Things have been fairly busy and things are moving forward on a number of things. That I'm not sure how I got an invitation to meet with the president of the Canadian Medical Association, the doctor's part at AMO, but I have, so that should be interesting. Maybe a little bit of a perk. There's quite a few invitations to different things from different sources at the AMO convention coming in every day now. And had we discussed the second meeting in August?
We have not.
I think that would be a good idea in case Sharon and I, and are you going to? But one's going to AMO when it's in winter. We're not coming back for the meeting.
Yes.
That is something that further on in the meeting that I think we should discuss as to possibly moving that to a week later.
Okay.
Okay. To 8.2, council members' reports of committees or Councillor Ritzman-Dominga.
Just to add one more thing onto your busy weekend, it's the Wing and Sidewalk sales this weekend. So get out and do some shopping. On another note, we had a Wingham Town Hall Theater meeting last week, and we are at $105,000. So we're only 15,000 away from our goal, which is fantastic. So that extra 15,000 will then allow us to be able to put in the HVAC system, the sprinkler system, and the fire doors for the theater to be able to open in the spring. If we surpass that goal of $120,000, then we're hoping to also add some ceiling insulation and house lights and possibly a projector and screen. So we're waiting on a couple more grants to come in this fall, but we've had 2 really significant donations last week that we're very excited about. That just really put us over the top. So we are moving along very, very well. I'm very proud of the committee and all the work that they're doing.
Thank you. That's all good news. And I didn't write it down, but there was 3 different grants that an email came in. One, like it's to do with Canada 150, and that there's a grant is that these are open from about a week ago to, I think most of them are into early September. There's one section for celebrations of 150 years of Ontario, or so that I know the East Wawanach 150 committee executive has already been notified. There's another grant on accessibility, and that Belgrave Community Center Board has been advised of that because they are looking at putting an accessible washroom available off the ice surface. That just waiting on engineers to give costing and how it can be done. And I'm forgetting what the other one is, but there is some things coming out in availability of grants. Any other, Councillor Wadden?
Yeah, I have another grant to refer to in last week's Citizen. It's quite an exciting article there about the Huron County Economic Development Board recommending that $500,000 grant be given to the CCRC. And very eloquent support for that grant from the representative from Huron East in council, the county council. And a terrible comment from our Howick representative. But I think it's great that we have someone like Mayor McClellan being so forthright and clear in expressing the contribution that North Huron is making to the county, to culture, and activities going on in Blythe in particular. So I just wanted to bring that to our attention. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Syed.
Yeah, I just, I did get an email from a company, and I did mention this to Kathy and Sharon, that about some revenue options or some solar, they're concerned or the question about renting land I think that it's been a part of our strategic plan for a number of years. And I know it is a priority, but obviously we've got a lot of them. And I respect that. I respect the fact that I took the call and I listened to his conversation, and Sharon has had conversations with him as well. And ultimately, I think from a standpoint for me, I like these alternative options. I think they're a necessity in municipalities these days, because with everything else, shrinking revenue streams tend to be that way. So I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that this takes priority, I don't think. But I think we do need to respect the fact that these companies are asking. So in my eye, we need to somehow provide a template of response or something to them to advise that, at this point, it's not on our priority list. However, come back and see us or talk to us, or we'll talk to you, or give some type of update. I just don't know if, and that's the thing. I want to make sure that we're not looked at as that we don't care. And that's because I think we do care. I just think it's on the priority list of 101 items. It's probably 90 at this point in our list. So I just wanted to make note of that, just because I did have the conversation with Sharon and keep council abrupt to some of the conversations that I do have from companies and other things that I didn't even know I was going to get a call. He just called me. So.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Councillor Sype. I think that we need to be looking at all opportunities for revenue generation that we possibly can. In our conversation that we had, I did talk to you about some of the work priorities that we have going on, and I summarized those in my activity report if council was able to see the extensive number of projects that we have on our plate right now. So as we're building out our new management team for the shared service, one of the things that we've been discussing is that we have a significant amount of work to do before we become fully operational, let alone optimizing. So right now we're focusing on the operational aspect, building out the framework for the new shared services department, and extending into the administration to build the administrative framework that we need to support those shared services departments. There's an extensive amount of work involved, and all hands are on deck with that right now. But we certainly want to keep those opportunities in the horizon to move forward with them as we move to that optimization phase.
If I could just make one comment, ESTC was approached several years ago about putting panels on a roof, and that opportunity didn't get pursued. Subsequent to that, last year, FD&H approached a couple of companies about possibility of panels at the ESTC and at the Wayham Fire Station. And they actually went so far as to do grid research, because you put the panels, you have to have the line capacity to handle electricity. And the ESTC's case, there is not enough capacity to solar panel the roof there anymore, because that whatever grid space there was a few years ago is gone. And in the Wingham case, at present, there was not sufficient grid capacity, but it may come back up again as they're doing other work in the engineering. So just so you know, we did look at that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Right to 10. Is there any requests from council? Okay, moving to 10.1. That bylaw number 68, 2016, being a bylaw to authorize the reading clerk to sign a lease agreement with the Avon Maitland District School Board, be introduced, read first and second time. Deputy Reeve Campbell, Councillor Sype. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. And the third reading, authorizing the reading clerk to sign the agreement and be read a third and final time, signed by the reading clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Councillor Hallahan, Councillor Sype. All in favor? Carried. Any announcements? Is other business where we talk about having a second meeting in August?
Yes, we can do that. And I also want to note that the Director of Recreation and Facilities would like to make a point of clarification on some discussion that occurred previously.
Thank you. I just wanted to have an opportunity to go back to the budget that was submitted in April 2015. And in fact, I misspoke. It was 1.27% was the exchange rate at the time, not 1.17. So 1.27, and we added the money now to accommodate any increase in that for present day.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. But in 12.0, the other business, would somebody like to make a motion that we move the second council meeting in August to the third Monday, or I mean the fourth Monday of August rather than the third because of the AMO convention? Councillor Knott, Councillor Ritzma-Tenenga, any discussion on that? That this will give staff time to properly advertise, notify, and have stuff on the calendar. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Moving to 12.1, the town hall public meeting. Councillor Hallahan, you're okay, and seconded by Councillor Knott. Any discussion? Councillor Sype?
So this is, I just want to understand, I understand, so it's a town hall public meeting. Is there going to be a specific is there specific topics, or is it just an open, is it kind of an open?
More or less open.
Okay.
Sharon?
Yes, so we will be bringing forward some meeting procedures for that town hall public meeting. I have had some concerns brought forward about the 1 hour time limit. I'm not suggesting that we be limited to 1 hour if there is good discussion and lots of people present and the meeting is productive. However, if there are, unfortunately, as we tend to see as attendance in our public meetings in the past, and let's hope this isn't the case, but we've had the case where there are two people that show up and they leave halfway through the meeting. And so we've scheduled it for an hour. We'll be here for that hour. We'll have some brief presentations made, allow for public input into whatever issues may come up. But if we don't need the extra time, then we would adjourn after the hour.
If there's good discussion and things are productive, we will just put a motion onto the books extending the time. That is the prerogative of the meeting at any time. Okay, the closed session is next. Do I have a motion to go in camera? Councillor Vodden, Councillor Knott, all in favor? We will have a brief recess